we'll take it. That's enough. We'll have a question from Eric Spencer, who is a design engineer. Mr. Spencer.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Given the clear desire of the Scottish people for a Scottish Parliament, does the panel think the days of the Union are numbered?
Alex Salmond.
Well, yes, I do. I think the days of surprise.
How numbered?
But, well, I think next Thursday, Scotland is going to take a giant step forward towards Scottish independence. I think the argument that's been joined in Scotland, in many ways, with respect, is a much bigger argument than has been the case, as far as I can see, south of the border, where it's been a very sterile, arid exchange between the Tory and the Labour parties at Westminster. In Scotland, we've been having a constitutional debate about the future of our nation. And I think that the balance of argument, certainly in the most recent indications we have in the opinion polls in Scotland tonight, is the case for independence in Europe, and the Scottish National Party is winning through that argument. We are only 7 points now behind the Labour Party in Scotland. That's a very dramatic difference from where we were at the last general election. And the reasons, of course, are not setting up a parliament for the sake of having a parliament in Edinburgh so the tourists can come and visit it. The reasons we want a parliament in Edinburgh is we want a people's parliament. We want social justice and economic progress in Scotland. And the one decisive step we can take to achieve these aims next Thursday is to vote for independence in Europe and the Scottish National Party.
Would you vote against a devolution bill? Is it independence or nothing?
Oh, it depends very much on what's the content of the devolution bill. You see, there are circumstances when the Labour Party would vote against devolution. I mean, they've said they'll vote against devolution if it involves a cut in the number of Scottish MPs at Westminster. There are circumstances when the Liberals would vote against devolution. They've said they'll vote against it, not if there's not PR for the Scottish Assembly. They say they'll vote against it if there's not proportional representation for the Westminster Parliament. It seems well, you'll vote against the package, including devolution. So quite clearly, there are circumstances when we couldn't accept devolution. I mean, for example, if there was another rigged referendum, not everybody will know here, but in 1979, the government held a referendum in which the dead were allowed to vote. People who weren't able to vote were counted as if they'd voted against devolution. So we wouldn't have any 40% rule if that was included in a devolution package. So quite clearly there are circumstances where we couldn't support devolution. But once we know what's in the Labour Party's package, and I'm hoping to know before next Thursday.
Well, he can tell you that.
Well, maybe John will tell us tonight.
Well,
then we'll know if there are substantial economic powers, substantial powers of the Scottish economy, powers to stop Trident coming to the River Clyde, and powers to ensure that Scotland gets a decent deal in the European community. Now, I think the combination of these powers is independence in Europe, and somehow I suspect that John won't be able to tell us that the Labour Party have been converted to that cause.
John Smith.
Of course not, because we believe in the United Kingdom and want to preserve the United Kingdom, which I think is of great benefit to the people of Scotland, as well as to the people of other parts of the United Kingdom. But I do believe that the government of the United Kingdom is over-centralised, and I think it is time that's long overdue to have a Scottish Parliament. I actually spent some time myself as a minister in the last Labour government on this very task. The honest answer that Alex Salmond should have given to your question on devolution was he would oppose any likely bill that's likely to come forward.
Of course,
let him finish.
That's Neil Kinnock's answer.
No.
Let him finish.
If you'll just allow me to deal with your question directly, the honest answer is that he would vote against it because we have been very clear, and it's a matter of agreement between ourselves and some other parties, including the Liberal Party, as to what that would be. And he will vote against that. Don't worry about it. You can stand by your corner and be for independence and nationalism and all the rest of it.
You publish
Don't
a
need
bill,
why you
John,
worry about
and
it.
I will tell you if it's any good.
Well, never mind. I thought you were a nationalist, and I thought you stood for independence. We'll publish a bill, and you'll vote against it. I predict you.
When will you publish it?
When we are the government, and we present it for the Queen's speech.
Why would
That's
you
what
publish it
normally
before
happens.
the election?
Well, just let me finish the question.
Can you be
please, if
brief?
you wouldn't mind. We stand for having a Scottish Parliament established in Edinburgh to deal with Scottish affairs. That happens to be the preferred view of the majority of the people in Scotland, as it's been regularly tested in referendums. But we're going to have a test in this general election, and we'll see. And of course, if the people of Scotland vote, as I think they will vote in very large numbers for the Labour Party in the election that's arising here, that will, I think, be a very important step forward because it will help us to get a bill introduced into Parliament which will set up a Scottish Parliament in Edinburgh, which will, in my opinion, not only give better government to Scotland, but will strengthen the United Kingdom. And if you take no action on that, these are the people who imperil it. There are two people sawing away at the legs that support the Union. the Nationalist Party, whom I quite understand, want to destroy the unity which is the United Kingdom, but the stupid Conservative Party, who don't know what they're doing, trying to preserve a situation which is not possible to maintain.
Alan Beith.
Are the days of the Union numbered? I think they're not, because the consequences of having, for example, two currencies at different parities on different sides of the border will be very damaging for the economy both of Scotland and of the United Kingdom. They're all the links which have been established over the years.
But there could be two tax rates, even under devolution.
Well, indeed, and there are
which
within...
Which would be as damaging, or not.
There are within many
tax
countries. There are within many countries different tax rates in different parts of the country. And indeed there are within local government different rating levels, different poll tax levels between different areas. But having different currencies means that you can't price your goods across the boundaries. But why would the days of the Union be numbered? Really, the days of the Union are numbered if Scotland is given no option but independence. And that is what the Conservatives are saying to Scotland now. Either you go independent or you have what they call the status quo. But there is no status quo. Because if the Conservatives were to be returned at this general election, which would be with a very small majority, they would have hardly any seats left in Scotland at all. And they would then have to impose colonial rule in Scotland. They would have to send up English ministers to staff the Scottish office, because they have nobody left to do it. The only people who would be elected are people they wouldn't dare put in charge of the Scottish office. It's probably Michael Heseltine, who will be sent up to Scotland to be Secretary of State for Scotland, the English running Scotland. I tell you, that is a recipe for long-term confusion, uncertainty, and a move towards the breakup of the Union. Right. What we want is home rule within the United Kingdom so that the people of Scotland can organise and run their own affairs while retaining the advantages of the Union.
Michael Heseltine.
Well, I think this is one of the most important issues in this election, as a matter of fact. I think that we are witnessing a potential tragedy in Scotland of historic proportions. And why I say this is because I know just how much power there is in the Scottish office. I know just how much power has been devolved. And I know that whilst at the margin you can talk about whether the balance is 100% right or 95% or 90% right, in truth it would make no effective difference to switch a little bit of power from London to Edinburgh. But what would happen is that people would say, well, it's no good, we need more. It hasn't been enough. And so I think the Scottish nationalists have the only credible alternative policy to the Conservatives, because they are saying where they want to be, and where they want to be is where all the other parties except the Conservatives will end up. Because the halfway houses, the compromises, are a delusion. They fail to tell people in Scotland how much power they've already got, how much Scottish ministers determine, how much Scottish local government determines, how much the people of Scotland determine. So we would actually then be taken down a road, salami slicing, to the point at which not quite enough had been given, and ultimately you'll have separation. Now, I think that is a tragedy of historic proportions. But I also happen to think it's a delusion. Because, you see, what Alex has got to say is, oh, well, really, it'll all be all right, because we'll stay within the community. What we've got to have is economic powers. How many economic powers does he actually think he's going to be able to get in Scotland within the single marketplace? We now have a European monetary...
How many economic powers are you going to have in the United Kingdom within the single marketplace?
No, but I'm just about to say, we have a European monetary system, we have a single market, we have the Single European Act, and you're peddling the idea to the Scottish people that you're going to be able to get some special powers in Scotland within the single market. You're not. The second thing you're not going to be able to get is the Europeans to give countenance to what you're suggesting. Just think what he's suggesting. He wants the Italians to be told that Scotland can have a special position and that Sardinia won't ask for it. He wants the Spanish to be told that the Scottish can have a special position and that the Basques won't ask for it. He's going to be telling the people of France that he wants a special position and that Corsica won't ask for it.
You've made that point.
And none of them will accept this delusion.
But you haven't answered his point. Very briefly, what moral right would the Tory party, with only a handful of MPs, have to govern Scotland if you win the next election?
Well, let me answer that question. And I will try to answer it as sincerely as I can. I believe that in politics, I'm absolutely sure that all three of my colleagues on this table, I happen to know them all, and I believe this is true, they say what they believe, genuinely believing it. It is not first and foremost what public opinion says. It's what you as a politician believe to be right. History is littered with examples of where public opinion was wrong and changed its mind dramatically very quickly.
Well, can I tell
so
you,
it's very important that if you, as I do as a Conservative, believe that the breakup of the Union would be a historic mistake of incalculable proportions,
Michael,
I say it without compromise,
you're wrong,
believing that I am right. And no compromising from my colleagues here would persuade me to fail to warn the Scottish people of the dangers that lie ahead.
I understand your position. When I understand Michael's position, I understand that he's going to appear in Scotland over the next few days like the cavalry coming over the hill to try and save the skins of the remaining band of Scottish Conservatives. But you see, where you're wrong is that you don't seem to realise we're moving into a new union in Europe, and it needs us to redefine our relationships within the old union of the United Kingdom. So you're saying that Scotland wants some special status. We don't want special status at all. Last September, John Major made a speech in Paris in which he was envisaging a European community of up to 30 member states by the end of this century. And what we say in Scotland, Michael, is yes, we agree with that. We're thoroughly in support of that. And we want the ancient nation of Scotland to be a full part of that process with equality of status with other nations in the European community.
John Smith.
I agree very much with what Michael Heseltine says in one respect, that we should say honestly and clearly what we believe in constitutional questions. But let me say to him that I believe very much in the unity of the United Kingdom. But if he goes about it in the way in which he's seeking to defend it, he will destroy it. Because I speak as a Scot, as a person who lives in Scotland, who cares deeply about Scotland, as well as about the United Kingdom. I believe that if we do not create a Scottish Parliament within the United Kingdom, you are, by that one stroke, going to end the Union and end the United Kingdom. There's never been a more important time to take the imaginative step of creating devolution now, and if we don't seize it now, you and your party will be responsible for bringing the Union to an end which you espouse.
John?
You're so foolish that you do not understand the forces that are at work in Scotland. They're very strong, and what is more, they are right and they're justified. There's no reason why Scots ought not to have more control over Scottish affairs within the United Kingdom. That's what the majority of us want, and what some other parties are trying to achieve. And there are two opponents, the foolish Conservatives and the Nationalists, who want to break up the UK. And I'll tell you a very interesting insight into this. The Sun spends its time attacking the Labour Party through supporting the Conservative Party in England, spends its time attacking the Labour Party by supporting the SNP in Scotland.
I tell you, John, you're being taken down a road by the Scottish Nationalists, and you won't be able to resist it.
I'll hear from our questioner, very briefly, Eric Spencer, and then I'm going to move on.
Yeah, for one, I wouldn't be sorry if the Union broke up, because I don't think Scotland's gained that much from it. They've lost an awful lot. They've lost they're losing their own identity, they're losing their own power. And Michael Heseltine, he's offering us nothing.
Well, he's the man, of course, who voted for the Scottish poll tax to impose it on the Scottish people, and then opposed it when it came into England and Wales.
I'm going to move on because there's a number of questions on this last topic.